Welcome to yours
Mine.
and the truth. And I'm your co-host, Marianne Kearns, and I'm here with
Sabrina Childress.
And today we are going to be talking about soul ties. So I thought I would kind of kick this off and give one of my examples of a soul tie, because I know that I've had conversations on this topic before, and I get different feedback, meaning that some people have heard of that term before and some people haven't. But so my example would be, I guess, the first person that I was ever intimate with, like a romantic relationship. There was this connection between me and this person that lasted long after we broke up, which this relationship lasted about 3 years. And I think that it had a lot to do with that energy of being your first and what that means to you. Now, maybe everybody doesn't have a soul tie with their first. I don't know. But that's how, yeah, I don't think that they do. But for me, it was a gravitational pull towards this person because, and I think I put more effort into it because it was my first person.
Okay.
So to speak. It wasn't the first person that I've had feelings for, and it wasn't the first person that I've necessarily dated, but it was my first real relationship, an intimate relationship. So.
Okay. Like for me, my very first soul tie happened like when I wasn't expecting it. I don't know. Yeah, it happened when I was young. And again, we want to specify that, while some of this does, revolve around sexual or sex in nature, you don't have to have had sex with somebody to have a soul tie with them.
Right.
So, but we're just going to focus on the more intimate relationship.
Yeah, I feel like we have a soul tie.
Yeah, we definitely do. I'm like, yeah, all the gravitational pulls and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, just the way that our friendship has grown over the years and how it all started and that sort of thing. So
yeah, we have secrets that need to go
to the grave. No untying that knot.
Right. So I'm gonna read a quick statement that really just describes what Marianne was saying, which is, have you ever loved someone so much that you settle for being friends just to keep them in your life? And what I mean by that is just like the soul tie of it all is that you want to keep them around even though you are no longer together, right? For whatever reason, it didn't work out. It's not going to work out. You guys are poison for each other or whatever. But you still are tethered to them in your spirit, to be honest with you. So like when you think about them often, they come up, at different times and spaces in your life, and they do the same for you. I personally feel like a soul tie can't be one way. Marianne, would you agree or disagree?
I don't know if I have an opinion on that yet. I guess because I look at it like if I have a gravitational pull towards that person, that I feel like I'm tethered to that person, then that to me is a soul tie. Whether they feel that way or not, I don't know, because we're not generally having those conversations, or we may not have had that conversation before. So they may feel it and I just don't know about it. So I don't know. I would love to hear comments, honestly, like persuade me either way.
Yeah. But I personally believe that it has to go both ways.
And I can see why.
That's just me.
Yeah.
I just feel like it has to go both ways in order for you to really feel that connection. Like if somebody feels connected, in my humble opinion, if somebody feels connected to you, but you don't feel the same connection to them, is that a soul tie or is that just an obsession?
So you're saying I'm obsessed? Or I think that it could just be called like an attachment, right?
Yeah,
it could just be an attachment, and where your spirits aren't necessarily tied together. You can break that. You can break an attachment with someone, but maybe you can't break a soul tie because your spirits are literally intertwined. I get it. Okay, maybe that's the direction we need to go in.
I feel like your soul is with you for a lifetime, and if you're tied to someone else's,
right?
They're with you.
I also think that you can have a sexual relationship with someone and then not feel your souls are tied together.
See, and I don't think so on that either, because I feel like the thing that ties our soul, sex is a very spiritual thing, I guess, to me at least. And again, this is just Sabrina talking, y'all. But let me know what y'all think. But sex is a very spiritual thing to me. So when I give myself to someone sexually, I feel like we are now our souls are now tethered to each other, because you're a part of my body count. And
The body count,
yeah,
geez.
body count, right? So, and if you're a part of my body count, then that means, you know, you're with me for life. I mean, whether I like it or not, like I'm always gonna remember my first. Hell, some people always say, "Oh, I don't remember my third," and it's like that's not true, because if that person or a sense of that person, you know, walks past you, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, that was that guy, or that girl, or that shim, whatever," and like that was so. For me,
I think you could be triggered into thinking about someone. I just don't know that you ever like you feel like this I don't know that you're constantly thinking of them. I have had partners, people that I've been in relationships with that I would still think about today.
Okay.
Not on a consistent basis, but like
Right.
maybe a song or somewhere, or I don't feel like the gravitational pull is as strong. There's not as much of a stronghold on that. It's not necessarily disrupting my energy, so to speak, or the continuing of a relationship with someone else. But I feel that there'd be a connection there if I saw them again.
Right. And that's that, how you say, you fondly think of them, right? Like, even if it was a disaster, you know what I mean? You're like, when you see them, you're like, what is it about this person, the chemistry, this energy between us that's still there, even though it probably shouldn't be, right? Like,
because sometimes, it is like an energy. It is like this, it's hard to put your finger on it, because sometimes you don't understand why you're tied to that person, especially if you haven't had an intimate relationship with them.
But see, and I think that's why people think, what do they call them? Emotional relationships are worse than physical relationships, because if you create an emotional relationship with somebody, that is definitely, you are soul tying yourself to that person, because now you are connected on a level that maybe your current partner or your whatever, partner or whatever, isn't connected to you on.
Perfect example that you made me think of. Okay, so I don't consider myself necessarily a jealous person. I'm not, when I'm in a relationship with someone, I respect the fact that they have friends and they may have female friends. And I would expect that those female friends would respect the fact that I'm in their life now, that type of thing, right? But I have had situations where, because I never attributed it to the soul tie till just now, but because I've had a soul tie with this person, let's just take my first, right? So I felt like I did have a soul tie with this person. They may not have felt it, I don't know. But we were in a relationship for about 3 years before we dissolved that relationship finally. And towards the end of that relationship, for most of that time, he was living in a different part of the state. And we were doing long distance, which was not the intent initially. And he had a lot of female friends, but I never had any problem with that. But there was a particular person.
Okay.
Actually, two people throughout our relationship that I wasn't really worried about. The first one, because this person was just out of their mind. Like, everybody knew me. She, she was just out of place, right? Trying to steal someone else's man, and it just wasn't happening, right? She was putting herself out there to be an idiot, honestly. And a lot of people had my back. So, but when he was living in another state, I knew that there must have been a connection between him and this other person, because I was having dreams about it.
See,
I was having dreams about it, and I knew, and it felt a different way. And I felt like, because my spirit is tied with this person and his is maybe starting to intertwine with someone else's, I could sense that.
Like, that is spot on. Like, I feel like even if a person crosses your minds, right? Like, you're not with them, you're soul tied to them, but you're not with them. And it to be 10 years later, and they cross your mind. I guarantee you that they are thinking about you at that, whether it's in the same hour, the same moment, the same day. I guarantee you something in their brain said, oh wait, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know.
Yeah, and I'll never know. Well,
Yeah.
I did. That's not true though, because this particular person and I actually, we had like probably a year break of not talking to each other at all. Like not, it was just time, right?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like anything bad happened. It was a mutual, dissolving of our relationship.
Yeah.
Because I knew he was staying down there. It wasn't like he was moving back,
Yeah.
and we just couldn't do it anymore. And it was fine. But we had no conversation, no contact. I mean, like he changed his job and his phone number, yet we found each other a year later.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this strong like bond and connection. And then that's the last time I've seen him.
But that doesn't mean he hasn't thought about you though.
Right. I would think that he has at some point. It's come up. I mean, when you have a relationship with someone over 3 years, like it's hard not to think about that person at some point.
Yeah. I don't even know if so much time is the factor, because is it, you know how people say love at first sight? Like I've never experienced love at first sight type of thing, but I wonder if like,
yeah, I don't know if I have either.
Has anybody drop a comment? If anybody, or if you know somebody who says that they,
I find the love at first sight hard to believe, honestly.
I don't know.
Maybe that's romanticizing it, and it's fun to kind of like revel in that after the fact. But did you really know,
right?
Like when you first met someone, that it was going to turn into something more?
Right. Like I don't know if I don't believe it, but I don't know if I do believe it.
But maybe it hasn't happened yet either, right?
Yeah.
For me.
I feel like my husband probably saw me and thought love at first.
Is that why you have to believe?
I have to, because he wouldn't stop pursuing. And I was just like, from like the moment I walked into the room, let him tell it was all because we were in college and he just needed a study buddy. But
I bet he learned a lot.
Class, girl, he learned. Listen, a college education for free, but but I think I don't. Okay, so just I don't think we can break soul ties. I believe we live with them. We learn to live with them as like an extension of ourselves, and because I mean, some people are going to probably think, even, watching this, like, well, if I have a soul tie, that means I can never love another person, you know what I mean? Or be in a relationship with another person because I'm so attached to this other person. And I don't think that's true. I think it's there, it's tethered, it's tied, but you still have to move through this thing called life, right? And you will find someone else to love, and someone else will find, you to love. And it's a different kind of love, or, I mean, it's in whatever facets that may be, whatever differences those may be. And it may be even greater, right, than the person you were, or the people, we'll get to that you were so tied with. So I feel like we need to remember that even though we've all got a past, is basically what I'm saying, right? You've done it, I've done it, your nieces and nephews are probably going to do it. Let's just keep 100. Maybe we can save each other from being tethered to so many people if we watch out.
If we acknowledge that soul ties exist.
Yes. Because I think some soul ties can be learning experiences, and some soul ties can be like not good.
So yeah, so my parents, for example, when they divorced when I was young, they always seemed to maintain this friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And so over time, me growing into an adult, I never understood why people would get in a relationship with someone and then just cut them off afterwards, as if that never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have kids, how could you not, like, come to terms and co-parent and, push your stuff aside, your relationship stuff aside? Because at some point you were enamored with this person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You saw great things in them, or you just allowed yourself to be taken advantage of, I guess. But I don't know. I just feel that, so for me, it was natural to try to maintain a friendship afterwards. But then I realized how detrimental that can be.
Yeah.
It took a little while. It took a little while, and it took a little hurt, and it took a little bit of having that connection within your group
Mm-hmm.
of what that was like. When I went through a really hard breakup with someone that was part of my core group of
Yeah.
people, um, I tried to save face a little
Mm-hmm.
bit and maintain a friendship because I wanted that person to still be in my life.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, I wanted that person to still be in my life. And then I realized that I couldn't
Yeah.
anymore. And I
That's,
had to
I feel
change the
like that's the
dynamics of the
hardest part.
group. And yeah.
That's a super hard thing to do because like keeping them there, what does that mean, right? And what does that mean for the new quote unquote love interest, right? Like what does that
Yeah.
mean to them? And are you transparent about it? Like are you like, okay, this person, you not that you're gonna sit down and be like, well, you know, I'm kind of soul tied to this guy, so or whatever, so you're gonna be here. Not that you're gonna do that, but
People know. Hello. Have you not ever like been, well, not in your situation, but have you not heard of conversations where um like you're dating and there's like this best friend that's always around or something like that, and you're just like,
yeah,
huh, like I just had this situation with a friend actually, we were connected and we considered going out, but we never actually took it to that level, and now we're just friends. So there's no, it's just a friendship there.
mm-hmm.
But I remember calling him out at one point about a former relationship of his or a former friendship or like a current friendship of his, and saying, like, did you guys, like, I had to ask at one point, not that it was any of my business, but I wanted to know if there was a soul tie there. And I had to ask if they had been intimate before, because they seem to just be friends, but they act like they're in a relationship together.
Yeah, I've asked a couple people that.
And now they're together.
Yeah,
Now they're together,
they are.
they are together. And I thought, duh, like, who didn't see that coming?
It was obvious to everybody else.
Right. I felt like it was obvious to me, and I don't even really know the other party, but I could just tell that even with your friendship, the way that they react to, just the way that they have the relationship publicly,
Yeah.
doing in a relationship type things
Yeah.
with just a friend.
I think at some point
I wouldn't have wanted to get in the middle of that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, you know what I mean? Like
if I sense that, I wouldn't want to get in the middle of that.
Because then it's going to be a constant fight. You know what I mean? Like at some point, even if they said, okay, no, we've never been intimate with each other as far as physically, but clearly there's a soul tie there.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So obviously you pay, or not you, but you know what I mean? It paved the way for them to be together later. But just knowing that it's always going to be a fight. Like it's always going to, and then people are like, oh, that's my little sister or my little brother. Like, no.
There's something more there, yeah, that hasn't been explored yet. I feel people like I think that people can sense that energy, that pent up energy.
And some people they're like, oh,
or maybe you can't. Maybe I'm just one of those people that is more intuitive to that type of thing.
You are intuitive to it just because you're more grounded than a lot of people. But there's a lot of people who also stick their heads in the sand, right? Like,
yeah,
like, oh, I mean, what's happening?
I've been an ostrich before.
Like, we're just gonna
kind of. I mean, you want sometimes things, and you're willing to do whatever you got to do to get those things, or you feel like you're just following your heart at the time.
Yeah.
And logic and your heart don't always blend well together.
I think at some point, how do you avoid those emotional pitfalls that give you the soul ties that you don't need? You know what I mean? Like
guardrails.
But like even
guardrails, you have to deal with other things too.
Like what?
If you don't have like these guardrails set up around you, I'm not talking about like this closed off border wall that no one can get into. I'm talking about your personal boundaries. Like it's just another way of putting that.
Yeah.
We know when we're stepping close to our boundaries. Those guardrails are there for a reason. We like to tempt fate sometimes and wonder if we're strong enough, like if we have enough if we could hold off, if we have enough discipline or or like willpower or those types of things. We do it with food. Hello. With our diet and stuff.
True.
We cross those guardrails. We let ourselves like, oh, I'm just going to bring this ice cream in, but I'm only going to eat like, a little bit. But I'm going to get the half pint, or the half gallon. We do it with food. We do it with we do it, sorry, in dating also. Like, oh, it's okay to like just go over to their house, on the second date. Nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
I'm not gonna do it. But point in case, sorry, I was like trying to get point in case. That's where I feel like, again, this is just me talking, y'all. Like, your body count and your soul ties to me are directly connected, because I feel like everybody deposits something in you, no pun intended, that when you are intimate with them. So if you try to convince yourself that doing the do or whatever, getting intimate with them won't matter because it's just, it's just a one night stand. It's just this one time. I'm not gonna really care.
Yeah.
Or even if it's, okay, I'm gonna jump in this relationship, even though there are like 5 red flags saying don't do it, and I do it anyway. They left a piece of themselves on your soul. And I feel like, in the words of Grandma Mills, she's never gonna say, if you're gonna be a hoe, be the best damn hoe you're gonna be. And now let's because my friend here, I love her dearly, I am not going to take her down a certain road. However, I am going to say the word hoe. Let's break it down, because males and females can be whores, okay? But what really defines a whore in today's society? Promiscuous? No.
I just don't like the term. I think that it's just so vulgar. It's like,
But
I don't know. Even hearing it makes me cringe. What?
I say, is it vulgar if it accurately describes something? Is it?
I think no. I don't know. I just feel like maybe I'm trying to be too politically correct here, but I feel like it's just a term. I don't know. It's not a term I'm comfortable using to describe anybody, even if they're like, I could just say they're promiscuous, right? I don't have to label it as something that's supposed to be derogatory. I mean, I look at it like,
it's just as derogatory. We're just politely calling them a slut bucket.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, in saying so, and I guess obviously,
I'm sure other people won't agree, and whatever.
There's many ways to say it, right? But at the same time, what I'm simply saying is, if you sleep around, okay, and when I say sleep around, I mean that in the most on the level sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, you are attaching other people to you constantly, and those attachments can become detrimental in a real relationship. You are carrying the weight of, because this is what I find a lot of times, people always say, oh, don't regret anything, like, don't, life isn't about regrets and YOLO and whatever, right? And then they get into a serious committed relationship with somebody who wasn't so promiscuous, right? Or wasn't so out there, or did concern themselves with how they conducted themselves in other relationships. And now they're regretting, like, they don't want to say, I slept with 14 people. Now they're sitting there going, oh, well, I don't ever want to tell them that. Well, why? You were proud when you did it.
Yeah.
Keep it 100. And then too, because I feel like it lets the other person know what to expect, in the sense of not in the bedroom from you, but what to expect as far as your emotional being. Because when you give yourself to other people, it leaves something on you and on them. And it like lets the person into like your world. And I feel like if you're lying about it, like, are you really having an honest relationship with the person that you're with in this community?
Yeah, I don't agree with necessarily lying about your past and whatever, but I do feel that you can evolve away from that.
You can definitely evolve.
And that we go through phases, and that if someone wants to hold them accountable to that, they definitely have that right to do so. If that's not an intimate relationship they're willing to participate in, knowing that.
Right. And
and if it's important to them, they would ask, right?
Right. And so, but for the people who are now like, well, YOLO, and at the time, and now they're like, well, now you're gonna break up with me because of this thing. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't even give me, if you lied about it, you don't give me the option to really consider you as a real mate, right? Or life partner simply because you lied to me about it. But if you tell me the truth about it, it does give me the option up front to say, do I want to continue with this, or, is this too much for me to handle? Now, don't get me wrong. What's the chick in the dang it, I can't remember, Mary Magdalene, right? You know what I'm saying? Who was the town squeeze, and then like she ended up being like Jesus' best friend. So like I'm paraphrasing. That's not how the story went. People don't use me as your Bible guide. But I'm just saying, like, yes, I do think people can change. However, how many?
What you're saying is that I understand where you're going, where the emotional well-being of that person is now tied to other people or influenced by other people.
Exactly.
So maybe this conversation brings light to someone else who's never heard of soul ties, and it may be a marker now to be like a new guardrail for them. I remember you first introduced me to that. I had not really heard of that before. We talk about soulmate, which is different. And twin flames is another term that people use for connections between, undeniable connection between another person. But I remember you telling me one time years ago that with whatever situation it was at the time, would this make a difference had you not slept with that person?
Yes. Yeah.
And then I had to look at it from a different perspective and pull myself out of that emotion and think, like, as a third party almost, and say, would this one thing or this series of things, whatever it was at the time, would it really upset me if I hadn't?
Yeah.
And so what I found out from that conversation going forward, after learning a little bit more about attachments and soul ties and those types of things, is that if I'm intimate with someone, you have a whole new set of expectations.
Oh, absolutely.
That I've now set that you may or may not have agreed to.
Absolutely. It's the contract.
And I own that now, because I didn't understand why, like, the effect that was having. Because that may not have been their intent initially, right? And I was like holding them to this expectation that they never really agreed to, honestly. And so I started to realize that that's something that has to be, kind of discussed up front, and, and then it kind of protects yourself that, like, some of the things would just roll off your back if you didn't.
Yeah. Like, and that's the contract. The contract of a soul tie has a price. Are you willing
to have a price? Yeah. I think it can feel empowering initially. Like getting your groove back after a divorce, or just like finding yourself in the process, and sexual freedom and things like that. But I also think that you really can't have a no strings attached relationship.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that.
I feel like it brings something, like, you may not be thinking about this person after the fact, but I do feel like if you don't acknowledge that, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. And I do feel like it would chip away at my self-esteem or my confidence over time if I didn't have those guardrails up.
If you don't, have what's the saying? If you can't, if you're not proud to admit what you're doing in the dark, in the light, then maybe you shouldn't be doing what you're doing in the dark. And I'm saying it that way in the sense of, like, not that you have to let the world know, right?
Yeah.
About what's going on in your bedroom or in your heart or whatever. However, if you're going to pursue another serious, intimate relationship, then, like, in those settings, right? Like, are you going to be able to be like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is me and this is all of me, right? I feel like being comfortable in that, there was a individual who said, oh, that's so nice that your husband is so understanding of you, because I am a straight shooter, and, like, people I've heard across my, for many years of my marriage, they're like, oh, y'all, like, are weird, and y'all, like, too honest with each other, and, all the rest of this. And it works for us, right? And the reason I feel like it works for us is because he knows about my past. He knows about my future and my current, right? Like he knows about all of that. And in giving it to him straight, no chaser, it gives him, like I said at the beginning, the option to deal with whatever he's going to choose. And I have to, do the same for him. But when this individual said that, I said, no. It's not that he's so understanding. It's that he understands me. There's a big difference. And I feel like our rules of engagement are based on the understanding of each other. I can say and do the most craziest things that people are like, what? Like, did you, like, your wife or Sabrina just said this thing or she did this thing, and he'd be like, yep, or no, because he could tell you, what I'm saying? Yeah. And it would also be something that, I wouldn't be necessarily afraid to say to him again, what I'm saying? Whether, or when I say, like, admit, right? Like, again, behind closed doors and, sometimes in front of people, depending on what, what it is. So I think that type of transparency in our particular soul tie, I'm talking about me and Al, is what makes our relationship even more special than any other soul tie I probably could have ever had in the past.
Yeah, because who wants to be with someone like 20 years down the road and be like, who is this person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you weren't like straight up and honest.
Right.
As you're even evolving, right? Yeah.
So I'm like, we've had some, everybody's like, oh my God, y'all relationship is so good. I'm like, listen, it is great. Don't get me wrong. I said, but we've definitely had some peaks and valleys, boo-boo. Like, this ain't sweet, but at the same time, that contract that we talked about earlier, right? That contract is what the price of that contract is like, this is what it is for us.
That's a whole new level of intimacy too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like being able to be like super raw with someone and have them not tolerate, which is what I feel like that first statement was about, like understanding, but be like, no, I understand her character, and therefore I can see where this is coming from.
Yeah. It prevents a lot of stress and arguments and dissension, just being able to do that. And like the fact that y'all, well, Marianne, y'all gonna learn about me. I have some very candid conversations, and sometimes I'll say stuff off the cuff. And by the way, I have been doing a really great job of not cursing so much. We'll sprinkle here and there, but no. So even in the conversations, and I'll say this and pass it back to Marianne, but the other day I was texting with a friend, and it's a male, and he said something like, he, how you text like a paragraph, right? And then like you add that like last thing, so it comes as like a separate text. And when you open the preview message, the only thing you see is like the last text.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the last message said effing you. It was like, but the word, right? Like,
right.
We're trying to stop cussing out.
Yeah, let's not air that. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. See?
Keep it classy.
It said effing you. And like, obviously I'm like sitting next to him, and I like open it up, and I'm like, like clearly I know like whatever, I'm sure there, because it showed me there were two messages, obviously. Clearly I knew there wasn't anything else. But imagine if the man sitting next to me saw that, just that one piece, obviously it was a little preview,
right,
and just went off the handle, you know what I mean? Or assumed something, you know what I mean? Type of, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that could have been not so good. But because this man, I trust him, he trusts me, he knows like whatever this is not
what you think it is. Like, it's not at first sight. Like,
yeah, it's not on the surface. So, and obviously I opened up the message, I'm like looking at it, and I just started laughing, right? Because it was obviously that last part was talking about the previous context of the company, not the, anyway, not me.
Right.
So anywho, I digress. I just want to say like that understanding I am eternally grateful for. I wish and pray that on every single, I'm going to say woman and man, but ladies, I got a special thing for y'all because I'm one of y'all. I pray that kind of, relationship power, because it's power. Mm-hmm. And that I am very, I'm very careful with my soul ties, both romantically and non, right? Like I'm guarded with myself and my space and my energy. So over to you, Marianne.
For final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Go ahead and with it.
Final thoughts. I do think it's important to acknowledge that soul ties exist. Maybe this is the first time you're hearing that and you're starting to like take an inventory of the relationships in your life and see where you may have allowed yourself to tether yourself to someone else inadvertently. So that you can start protecting that space and that energy and your peace a little bit more. There are ways I feel like you can step outside of that. So even if you've had soul ties before, like it's not the end of the world. You can separate yourself from that and detach from that and find yourself in other relationships happily. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with that.
This is not.
Give yourself some grace too, you know?
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Give yourself some grace, like, you know?
We're learning. We're living and learning, right?
Yeah, exactly. This whole thing is about failing forward sometimes, and there is a cost associated with those types of behaviors. And if you don't want to listen to sage advice, then you'll learn by living it, right?
Yeah. And sometimes people, I guess, need to learn by living it. I prefer learning by example because I don't need to smoke the crack to know that it's bad. Like I just want to. I don't want to.
Your phrases sometimes.
I don't want to go through the withdrawals. So it's all good. So
and on that note,
please
don't smoke the crack either.
Right. Drop your comments below. Let us know what you think. Subscribe to our channel. We are here to just have some real conversations and be weird like us, right? So not everything is glitz and glam for us, and not everything is, let's be totally together, because we're not. We're like pieces of a puzzle, right? She's my yin and yang and vice versa. So
right.
So on that note, we're going to leave you with love you later, bye.
Love you later, bye.
Till next time.
I think the thing that people don't understand is that sex is a lot more spiritual than we talk about. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the words in the Bible, in the Greek and the Hebrew, that word joining, mm-hmm. it has a threefold meaning. It means that they're joined together intimately, they're joined together physically, and they're joined together spiritually. Mm-hmm. And so, and we know what the Bible says, a three-man cord is not easily broken. That's why when a lot of people are having one-night stands, they connect with those people on a physical level, a soul level, and an emotional level. And they're realizing, like, why do I feel such a draw to this person? Yes. It's because in the Bible, when God recognized the marriage, it wasn't on the wedding day. It was when they consummated the marriage, right. When they came together and had sex. Yes. And what's happening is we live in a generation of Netflix and chill. We live in a generation of one-night stands. It was my birthday, so I had to turn up, and I met this guy, and what ends up happening is we form soul ties with all these different